I'm doing valve stem seals on my BMW N62 TU engine, although the procedure should be the same for the N62 as well, the older version. I didn't want to get the all German auto tool because it was really expensive, so I decided to gamble it, and I'm trying out this tool here from German Specialty Tools. You see the part number there, or the tool number, whatever. This is what it comes with. It came with instructions as well, but it came in that bag. So this is what it comes with. Got your valve stem seal, no, your valve stem keeper tool. That's what that is. So yeah, I'm gonna give this thing a shot. I'm gonna see how this does. These are plastic. I have no idea if they're plastic on the all German auto version. So yeah, let's see how this tool does. You're gonna notice during this video, my intake manifold has been removed. I actually had addressed a water leak underneath the intake manifold just before filming this video. And so I figured I would leave the intake manifold off because it's just easier to do it with it off. But you do not need to remove the intake manifold to do the job. Here's a pro tip for anybody doing this job, no matter what tool they're using. The moment you pull your valve cover off, you should install these. You just stick them in the holes down there. See that? I got one in. I got that one in too. There. Oh, there. What I almost did. So I'm pulling off this. I think it's like a Valvetronic sensor or something like that. I dropped my tool that I had and my e-torques, and it almost fell in that hole down there. If it would have fell down there, I would have been ripping this entire engine out. It would have been seriously ridiculous. So yeah, literally the moment you pull your valve cover off, throw these in like instantly so that you don't drop anything down there. I got lucky this time, but that could have been bad. So I'm reading the instructions for how to use this tool, and it's a little bit complicated. So I decided I'm going to go ahead and document this part of the process as well. I don't know if it's going to be pretty much the same as the all German auto tool. I've never used that one before, but yep, I don't know. I'll document all the complicated steps on this one. Let me show you what I did here. So I got my exhaust plates on. These exhaust plates are exactly the same. And then notice the orientation, how I did it. And then I got my intake plates on. These intake ones are like reversed. It's kind of weird. You can't really see it, but this one says bank 2 intake front. I guess you can see that one, bank 2 intake rear, because this is bank 2 that I'm doing right now. So the way you have to do this, I guess notice where I have it. Notice how this is like the first, I don't know what you would call that, the first set of bolts you can put it in. And then this one's in the very last one. It's in the very rear. And then the intake was a bit different. You put this one in the first one, and then you actually put it in that one there. So see that? It's right next to, I guess an easier way to say this is like the first spark plug. And then that one's in the third spark plug. And then you know the one over there. It won't even go right there. One thing you have to know about this is for the exhaust ones, you pull off those nuts right there that you see, and then you stick your plates on, and then you stick the BMW's nuts back on there. And you don't get it really tight, you just get it barely tighter than snug, and that's it. With the intake cams, it's a little different. You see the nut on the bottom. That one is the BMW nut. And then the kit actually comes with, see that bolt and nut seeing there? You pull out the bolt that was already there. And then you stick this one from the kit on there. And you got to make sure that this bolt bottoms out all the way. Don't like torque it down hard, but just make sure the threads are bottomed out. And then you can tighten your nut down there. And you know, same thing with the other nut. You don't get it super tight, just barely tighter than snug. And it's the same thing on this intake cam. You use the BMW nut, and then you pull the BMW bolt out, and then stick the bolt in from the kit, bottom out the threads, tighten the nut, and that's how that part works. I've got my plastic things in, and I'm ready to rotate it and get it to top dead center. I'm ready to do this first one. Notice how the thing actually sits. This sits like on the outside of it. I don't know, it's kind of weird. But yeah, this is what the first one's supposed to look like. It was a bit of a trouble. Oh, you can't really see it. I had a bit of trouble getting that. Oh man, it's so bright. Okay, there we go. Getting that crow's foot on there. The instructions here tells me that I need to use the small or the S, and that is the one I have on there. So we'll see how it goes. I've got the first valve stem seal pulled and completely installed. I measured this. This one was 4/1000 of an inch over on that diameter. Just out of curiosity, I'm going to measure all of these just to see how oversized this hole is, to see, you know, how bad it needs to be for it to leak. One thing I did, so I got this tool off Amazon. See how it has the 3 sizes? The 1/2 inch size is the one that you need. This is angled at like 45 degrees. You can see mine is all black here. I put a torch on this and I had to bend it to be like, it's not quite 90, but see how close that is to 90? It's pretty close. Maybe it's like 80 degrees probably, but yeah, I tried getting it when it was just at the 45-degree angle and it would not work because it's just such a tight fit. So I spent like 2 hours yesterday just driving around the parts stores trying to find a tool for this. I went to Harbor Freight, I went to AutoZone, Napa. Nobody had one of these that was angled like this. So I just had to put a torch on this and then do it myself. I wouldn't recommend bending this thing without having a torch on it because it'll just break the metal. The metal will just snap. But once I got it red hot with the torch, it bended very, very easily. And yeah, you know, like I say, I don't know that I would recommend quite 90-degree angle on this, but almost 90 is what you're gonna want. One thing I'm finding that's useful is on the intake cams, I do have to pull the rockers, but on the exhaust, I don't have to pull the rocker arm all the way. I just have to lower the spring down, and then I can just push them out of the way. Like you see that rocker arm and the other one right there. You can't see it, but you can see the valve that is missing a rocker arm. Basically, you can just push them over to the side, and I'm thinking that's probably how it's going to go. I'm betting all of the exhaust rocker arms I can just push to the side, and then the intakes I probably do have to pull all the way, but it's just, you know, quick tip for anyone doing this job. People online were having a hard time getting this tool to work. This thing actually is working perfectly for me. It's a little bit odd, but it seems to work fine. I don't know if it works the same as the All German Auto tool. You know, I've never even used that tool before, but yeah, this thing is working fine. I'll show you how I use it. I couldn't record this step because I only got 2 hands, but yeah, you see that? You just put it in there like that, and it looks kind of odd. Okay, I turned my camera light on, that's a lot better. So it looks kind of odd, like see that? It looks like it's not quite in there right, but it actually is. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it in the video, but there's like ridges in the metal, and the tool, you know, like I said, you can see it. The valve keeper is sitting right at it, so it's not going to go any further down. The little metal bar thing, I guess it's like a pin, it's pressed all the way down. And then yeah, basically you just set it on the valve and you press it in. Maybe let me attempt to get this on video actually. I got my little setup going. Got my valve in there. Oh, one thing I almost forgot. You gotta dab this with, I'm using assembly lube. You gotta dab it with something like that or similar. Just put it on there and let me do that real fast. You can see that I just put a line of that sticky stuff on there. That's the main thing. You just need something sticky apparently, but yeah, you just push it down there. Okay, so I did not get good documentation for how to use this tool, by the end of the job, I was just so done with it because it takes so long to do it. And so let me just give you a little bit of a demonstration for how to use this thing. So imagine I had my valve keepers in there. One thing, this pin has to be pressed down. It's going to be like kind of open like that, all funky, like with the keepers in there. What you do is you press down. So you press down on the valve, and then see that? See how the valve literally pushes the pin up? And when it does it, this thing will close a bit because the valve seats basically catch onto the valve. And one thing I do, so I sit it like that, and then I was kind of like wiggling it back and forth just to make sure that it sit all the way. And then when you pull it out, your valves are going to be there. And that's how this thing worked. It worked very, very well. One thing you do have to make sure that your spring is compressed all the way down. So that way when you're pressing down on this, you can actually go down enough. See that? Like if it's only going down halfway, like that, your spring isn't compressed enough and it's not going to, your valve seats are not going to seat if you do that. See, that's the main thing. One thing to understand about this, see how this thing kind of like does that? The way that I made this thing work is basically I got a pick, like imagine I'm putting it down into the engine. Basically I got a pick with the other hand and I could move it around and I could situate it so that way it's sitting properly. And then when I pressed down on it, I had to press it with the pick. So like I pressed like that. You know what I mean? Because if I just pressed with it out, it would just do that. See that? So you got to use the pick to get it in the correct orientation. And then when you press, you have to press with the pick and with the actual valve stem keeper tool. And that's how you get this thing to work. I'm making some really good progress on this job. I just finished installing all the valve stem seals on this bank. Let me show you what I've done here. So I actually didn't have to move these at all. Even when I did the ones over here, see how it's just cantilevered way far out there? One thing about it, it was like way more important to have this on the back of it, controlling the, what do you call it, like a crow's foot way down there. On the one that's way cantilevered out there because it tries to move a lot more, but it really wasn't that bad. This whole bank went pretty smoothly. One thing I noticed is the exhaust valves were always tight on there. I have no idea why. And then the intakes were just, like they came right out, but so yeah, you can see way down there. No, you can't. Let me move this. You can see way down there. Yeah, see that? It was a little bit of a pain doing these back ones, but it was not bad. I'm surprised at how smooth the back ones went. This side is completely done as far as the valve stem seals go. I still need to figure out what the torque specs are for this oil line that I disconnected, and then also there's some sensor for the Valvetronic or whatever in the back there. I need to figure out the torque specs for that, and then I can torque this down, put the valve cover on, and then I can move over to the other side. One thing, before putting the electrical together, I think I want to have this other side done. I'm guessing if I bolt down the electrical, then it's going to fight me, so I'll put the valve cover on this side, and then I'll stop and then go to the other side. Here's all my bad valve stem seals. It's kind of a lot. And then I do think it's a good idea to go ahead and put everything back in the kit before putting on your valve cover, even though I am going to go right back to the other side. There's just a decent amount here, and there's a decent amount of parts. It's easy to forget something in the engine. Apparently these are pretty easy to forget. But yeah. A lot of people on Amazon really hated this tool. This tool worked perfectly for me. You just have to know how to use it. I'll show a clip on the other bank when I'm doing like the front cylinders. I'll show you how to use it. It took me a second to learn how to use it too. Like when I first started doing it on the front, on these front cylinders, I wasn't doing it quite right and it was kind of messing up. But by the time I figured it out, I was on these rear cylinders. And I didn't want to get a recording of that because it's clear back there. I figured I'd just get even more good at it and then I'd show you on these ones, one of the front cylinders. So that, you know, it's just easier to show and you get a better view of it. But yeah, this tool works great. The people on Amazon, they didn't like it. It had some really bad reviews. I went straight onto the website and I purchased it right off of their website. I didn't get it off of Amazon. Maybe that's why this kit is working good for me. Because I mean, people on Amazon were saying that the threads weren't lining up. They have to rethread these. They said this tool's garbage, but I mean, I am not having any issues with this tool, honestly. I'm not fighting it. I'm really just, I'm able to cruise along. And you know, I'm saying that after doing this many of them. And so, you know, I know how to use the tool. I know what I'm doing with this. This was a really good, well-engineered tool. I'm really not fighting it at all. It works great. So for anybody debating if they should get this cheaper one versus the All German Auto tool, I recommend just getting this one. It's so much cheaper. It works great. I'm really not having any issues with this tool at all. One important thing I want to document is I'm replacing these spark plug tube seals. That's what these are called. These, see this? That's just Fevy on there. This is the Fevy brand that was on the car when I purchased it. These seals were leaking, and like randomly when it was winter time, my car would have a misfire on that cylinder right there. Oh shoot. So look at this. So this is the brand new one. This is OEM, BMW OEM part. Look at the ridges on there that the seal has. Look at the difference on this Fevy. And this one is the same thing. Yeah, look at that. You can tell that was leaking. See that? It just doesn't have the ridges that the OEM one had. I don't know. What did this one have? I don't know if it had ridges and then it just went away, which is even worse, honestly. The top part, what do you got there? This is OEM. We got two of them. Effectively two O-rings. Fevy, what does Fevy have? Effectively two as well. The thing that's not good about these Fevy things though, this car currently has 130,000 miles on it. I'm guessing the original ones went bad at around 100,000, and then the guy who owned this before me just threw the Fevy ones in. And at, you know, 30,000 miles later, approximately, these Fevy ones are just leaking all over again. So anyone thinking about doing this job, don't waste your time with the Fevy. Or there's one other brand that I found. I read on Reddit they had the other brand's even worse. Apparently Fevy is the better of the two for the non-OEM. But if you want to do the job correctly and you want the car to last, you know, break the bank and get the BMW ones. You're going to see the BMW ones are a lot more expensive. I got these on clearance and I believe I spent like $28 per one. And there's 8 of these. So it's kind of expensive. I'm almost done finishing this valve cover. There's a trick to this that I want to document. So these are brand new on mine, and they're the actual OEM brand. So the clearances are tighter than this old one that was leaking. What you have to do on this, and I read somewhere on Reddit, people struggle with this. Basically, this thing, you have to install it in the engine first, and then when you put the valve cover on, obviously it's going to slip on all of these. With all 4 of these. A lot of people really struggle with this, and I just struggled on this for about an hour and a half. And so the thing that I discovered, because I finally got it to work, so I got some assembly lube that I've been using for like the valve stem seal seats or the valve, no, the valve keepers. I get that and I put it on, you know, the whole radius or the whole circumference of this to lube it up as good as you can. And then the way that you actually have to make this work is, so what happens is it fights you on the bottom part. Like I have a mirror, so I can actually slide underneath there and see the gasket. You know, I can actually go there, see that? You can actually see the gasket, and mine is sat properly, sat all the way down. But what happens is, typically when you go to put this on, this part just won't close all the way. And if you look in your spark plug tubes, there's a gap in there as well. That's the assembly lube, I'll get to that. But yeah, I was looking in there when it was fighting me, and there was just a gap in there, and it was a gap on every single, you know, on all four of them. I just couldn't get it to sit all the way down. And I had, you know, these parts bolted, not tight, but just like, you know, bottomed out. I had the one over there bottomed out, and I just could not get this valve cover to press down enough. What I ended up doing is, so I pulled it off and then redid the silicone. I'll get to that later as well. So I pulled this off, cleaned up the silicone, reapplied silicone, and then I repositioned it. I popped all of these gasket things. I popped them all off. See this? These screws. These are like for this, but yeah, basically I popped all these gasket rubber things off on all of them so that I can watch the bolts, and because I'm replacing those anyways. And then I had it in there, and then I positioned it first on the bottom part. So I got it in the bottom part, and then I pushed on the top part with my other hand, and then I just kept pushing back and forth, kept rocking it. And I actually heard a popping noise, like when it actually popped in correctly. I heard these pop in, and I continued pressing it down and wiggling it. And then at that point, once it was pressed down, I stuck this in and then threaded it, and it caught. It was low enough to actually thread in, and at that point I was able to put all of these in. I haven't seen anywhere online where they tell you how to actually deal with that, but yeah, it was a pain. One thing with silicone, you have to basically dab this part. Let's see, basically right where this front timing cover bolts to the head, you dab a little bit of silicone on there, and then you do it on the other side. So right there has a dab, and then what do you call it? These parts on the gaskets, basically mostly on right there, like the corner. You have to put silicone on there, and then on the other one too, there's two of them. Silicone there, and then a lot of people, including myself, we just do silicone across the whole radius of that. We just get it all on there. And then one thing you do have to actually check is you do need to make sure that the radius thing didn't pop out of place. Let's see if we can do it. I have a mirror, it's impossible to do it without it, but hold on. But basically, you go like that, and you just check to make sure that it's actually sat properly. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it in this video, but you get the idea. I guess you can barely see it. Don't think it's rotating on me, but yeah, basically you just have to check to make sure it's actually sat properly. It's not that bad with two hands. It's like, I'm making it look way worse than it is because I just have the one hand because I'm recording, but yeah, you just got to check that. And then another thing is, I do recommend, the book doesn't necessarily say to do this, but I recommend doing it. Just check all of them, basically. Just go throughout the whole circumference of the whole back of the head, you know, all the way with your mirror. Just make sure that the gasket didn't fall out of position on any location. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You know, the new gasket kit's going to come with that seal, replace that. It's going to come with these as well. Mine aren't bad. I'm just going to leave the old ones there. And then, yeah, this side is pretty much done. One thing I forgot to say is when you go to torque this down, the silicone that I have recommends you wait for an hour before you actually torque it. And so basically, you put it in position like this, the way that it is. You have your silicone there, and then you bottom the bolt out, but you do not torque it. And it tells you to wait an hour. No, wait an hour, then after that you can torque it. And according to Google, my torque spec is going to be, what do we got? I'll show you this. Cylinder head bolts, basically the M6s are 10, M7s are 15. According to a video that I watched, every single one of these bolts are going to be the M6s, so they're going to be the 10 Newton meters. The car is put back together. There's no more blue smoke. I've been running this thing for about 30 minutes. And as you can see, there's not blue smoke dumping out of the tailpipe. See that? The exhaust is completely clear. Typically what would happen is when you first start it up, then it wouldn't burn oil, it wouldn't have the blue smoke, but if you let it sit there and idle like this, in about 5 to 10 minutes it would start pouring out blue smoke. And that's what it does on all of these. It's a common symptom, but yep, car is fixed. No more blue smoke.